So you follow a diet regimen or you follow intermittent fasting, whatever you like to do, and you reach your goal weight. What do you do now? See, the number one issue when controlling weight is not really the weight loss itself, it's actually the weight regain. Most people can actually get into a system where they lose weight, but a lot of them then regain that weight. So weight loss sustainability is incredibly important. And I'm gonna break down easy steps that you can take to ensure that you're sustaining your fat loss after you've reached your weight loss goals. I'm gonna break it down in this video. Stay tuned. Now this video is for anyone who's utilized any kind of weight loss strategy, has reached their weight loss goal, and wants to sustain that fat loss, doesn't want to regain fat. One major thing that a lot of people fall into is that they don't know what to do once they reach their goal. They know that they ate at a certain calorie intake, they've cut off a certain amount of calories, they got to a certain point, but now that they're here, now that they've reached the place that they wanted to get to, what's the strategy moving forward? What do they do next to ensure that they don't gain weight? Most people just continue to eat at the same caloric deficit because they don't know what to do and they're so scared to gain the weight back. Strength training is incredibly important. The thing with strength training is that you want to ensure that you have as much lean mass on your body as possible, because the primary driver to your metabolic rate is muscle tissue. The more muscle you have, the higher your resting metabolic rate. Even if you were to do nothing, even if you were bedridden, 70% of the energy expenditure that you create comes from your resting metabolic rate. These are things that you have in your body that automatically require energy, even if you do nothing at all. For example, things like breathing, kidneys, your heart. To power all of these different things, your brain, all of these different things utilize energy, and that lies in your resting metabolic rate. But all of these things can't be modified. What you can modify that utilizes your resting metabolic rate is your muscle tissue. So the more of it that you have, the higher your resting metabolic rate will be. So please, if you're losing weight, do not go so hard to the point where you just focus on the diet itself, or you just focus on the calorie intake, and you don't also focus on protecting as much lean mass as you have on your body, or even going to the gym to try to build some lean mass at the same time that you're losing fat, because in a lot of cases that can happen. And I'll have a link down to a video where I talk about how you can utilize this strategy where you're losing fat and building muscle at the same time. Another thing is that you cannot overlook the psychological barriers to sustaining fat loss. You have to ensure that the foods that you're eating aren't just nutritionally good for you, but also taste very good for you, because willpower is finite. No matter how you slice it and dice it, it is finite. So you want to do two things to work off of your willpower. One, you want to reduce the amount of willpower that's needed. So if you have to be at a caloric restriction, if you have to eat certain foods and you have to eat foods that don't taste as good, there's too many barriers. Your willpower will diminish over time. So what you want to do is, if you have to do those things, also make sure that you're at least making your foods taste good. You can add so many spices and herbs and things to the food, no matter what you're making, to give it a really good taste. And these things have little to no calories. They're not going to take away from your strategy. So make sure that when you're cooking these foods, or when you're making these foods, or if you're eating food, just make sure that it tastes good. So make sure, yes, that it meets the daily nutrition that you're looking for, or the macronutrient breakdown that you're looking for, but also make sure that it actually tastes good, because the psychological aspect of sustaining fat loss is a huge aspect. And as I said, your willpower is finite. So don't put too many barriers in front of your willpower. Another thing that you can do is creating habits. We as humans love patterns. We love habits. That's why habits are formed. If you can form a habit around the lifestyle that you are currently utilizing to lose the fat, you can basically flank your willpower and now create a habit. So your body is just naturally predisposed to doing these specific tasks because you've already created a pattern. Your brain, your body, they love patterns. So even though you're diminishing your willpower, you can keep the flow going because you've built a habit. I'll also link a video below that I talked about on how to build habits and the actual compository elements that come with building a habit. And I'll have that linked in the description down below as well. Another thing that you want to think about is satiety, not just calories. Satiety is incredibly important. And what is satiety? Is how satiated and how full and satisfied you feel when you're eating your foods. Normally, when you're at a caloric deficit, you could end up not feeling satiated when eating your foods. Why? Because you are eating at a caloric deficit. One strategy that you can utilize if you want to use intermittent fasting, you can do that so that you can compress all your food and eat it all in one sitting, instead of spreading it out to 3 meals or even spreading it out to 6 meals. That will allow you to eat within a caloric deficit but still feel satisfied with the meal that you ate. Another thing you want to focus on is eating things like protein, eating things that have fiber. These are foods that create high satiety. Avoiding things like processed carbohydrates because they create low satiety. Another important thing is that you want to get enough sleep. You have to try to get in at least 8 hours. Studies have shown time and time again that lack of sleep actually reduces leptin. If you didn't know, leptin is the hormone that tells you that you're full. It sends the signal to your brain that you're full. Ghrelin is the hormone that tells you that you're hungry. So you mix this in with the fact that you're at a caloric deficit where your body is trying to eat more food and you're increasing your hunger hormone, and this is a recipe for disaster, and it's going to be taxing on you for sustaining your fat loss. So please try your best to get as much sleep, as many hours as you can per day. I get it, a lot of people work early in the morning, so you have to end up sleeping earlier. Trust me, it may seem insignificant, but it's actually very valuable. You want to get your hormones under control, because if you do, you'll have less things that is fighting against the things that you're trying to achieve. You don't want leptin to be reduced and ghrelin to be increased. You want the reverse to happen. You want ghrelin to be decreased and you want leptin to be increased. You want your body to be working with you so that you can reach your goal of fat loss and then sustain that moving forward. And please, whatever you choose, whatever regimen you choose, be it intermittent fasting or whatever diet that you decide that you want to utilize, just make sure that you feel comfortable enough to be able to sustain that protocol for the rest of your life, because that is the most important thing to choosing any protocol. It isn't how quickly it will make you lose weight, how efficiently it will make you lose weight, how much weight it will make you lose. The number one thing, the most important thing is, can you sustain utilizing this protocol for the rest of your life? Because if you go back to anything that you were doing before, you will inevitably go back to the way you were before, and that means the weight is most likely going to come back. So I hope this video has helped you guys, and of course I want to thank my patrons from my Patreon, and I'm going to go ahead and put their names right up here.